They say all corruption begins with a whisper, soft, harmless, almost tender. It doesn't arrive with horns or a dagger. It hides behind compliments, behind smiles, behind the need to be liked. That night, the hall was silent except for the faint echo of a ticking clock. Dust floated in the candlelight, and somewhere, a single chair creaked as if reacting to an unseen weight. The student sat still. His reflection wavered faintly in the cracked mirror before him. The lecture had already begun. "You crave to be liked," the voice said, not loud, not soft, but deliberate. "That is your first mistake." The student didn't answer. His eyes followed the reflection instead of the speaker. He couldn't see the man behind the voice. The darkness swallowed everything beyond the edge of the flame. "Tell me," the voice continued, "how many times have you betrayed yourself just to be accepted?" The student opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He remembered laughter at the wrong moments. Apologies he didn't mean. The countless times he'd said yes when his soul screamed no. The voice chuckled faintly. "You see? Even now you wish to defend yourself, to appear good in the eyes of a voice you cannot see." Something cold brushed his spine. The student finally spoke, his tone uncertain. "Who are you?" "I am the part of you that stopped pretending," the whisper replied. The flame flickered. The mirror shivered as if something behind it breathed. "You were not born to be liked," the voice said, each word slow and venomous. "You were born to be respected. There is a difference. One costs your soul, the other demands it." The student lowered his head. The truth hit him harder than confession. Being liked had always been his obsession, his mask, his safety, his invisible chain. Every smile, every compliment he'd earned was a thread woven by fear. "You wanted peace," the voice murmured. "But peace is the prize of the strong. You wanted love, but love bends to power. You wanted approval, so you became harmless. And in becoming harmless, you became invisible." The student's breathing grew heavy. He looked into the mirror again. The reflection was no longer his. The eyes staring back were older, colder, filled with calm judgment. "What are you?" he whispered. The reflection smiled faintly. "A teacher," it said. "And tonight your lesson begins." The candle trembled as if the room inhaled. Shadows stretched like serpents across the walls. The student felt the whisper crawl beneath his skin, rewriting his thoughts one by one. "From this point forward," the voice declared, "you will learn the forbidden art, the way of masks, fear, and consequence." The flame dimmed to a dying ember. And as darkness devoured the hall, the student heard his own voice, distant, hollow, ask, "Then teach me." The mirror cracked. The crack in the mirror spread like a slow smile. Each fracture caught the candlelight and threw it back in 1,000 broken ways. The student stared at his reflection, fragmented, scattered, and multiplied. None of the pieces looked human anymore. Silence pressed down like water. Then the voice returned. "You see it now," it whispered. "This is who you've always been, a collection of pieces shaped by other people's expectations." The student touched the mirror. It was cold, sharper than glass should be. "Why does it hurt?" he asked. "Because the truth always cuts," the voice replied. "Every time you bowed, every time you smiled when you wanted to scream, you carved another line across your soul. That pain is your sculpture." The student lowered his head. He could still hear faint echoes of laughter, memories of friends who praised his kindness, lovers who adored his gentleness. None of them had ever feared losing him. He was convenient, predictable, safe. The voice continued, its tone turning almost kind. "Mankind worships masks, not faces. They follow certainty, not softness. Do you understand now? To be respected, you must become a mask that others can't read. A surface that reflects their fear back at them." He hesitated. "And what happens to the person beneath the mask?" The voice paused, then smiled through its silence. "He dies, or evolves." The candle flared without warning. Shadows surged across the walls, twisting into shapes of faces he once knew, his mother, his friends, the woman he loved. Each one whispered something cruel, weak, naive, desperate. He covered his ears, trembling. "Stop, please. Do not beg," the voice snapped. "Begging is for those who wish to be liked. Command your pain. Shape it. Make it your armor." The student looked up, sweat running down his temples. "How?" "Begin by forgetting your reflection," the voice said. "Look into the mirror and erase the parts that seek comfort. Replace them with intent. With precision. With consequence." He took a breath, steady but trembling. Slowly, he lifted his hand again. The reflection obeyed, but this time, it didn't mimic him. It moved slightly faster, slightly sharper, as if impatient. "I can feel it watching me," he whispered. "It's not watching," said the voice. "It's becoming." And as he watched, the reflection began to shift, his eyes turning darker, his expression calm but unreadable. The innocence melted away like wax in heat. What stared back at him now wasn't the student, it was something colder, deliberate, unafraid of judgment. "This is power," the voice said. "Not the kind you display, but the kind you conceal. The world respects only what it cannot fully see." The student blinked. For a moment, he felt nothing, no fear, no shame, no warmth. Just stillness. "Good," the whisper approved. "You're learning to hide. Soon you'll learn to command." The candle dimmed again, its flame thinned to a trembling thread of light. The cracked mirror glowed faintly, showing both versions of him, the human and the mask, fading into one. The student exhaled. "I don't know who I am anymore," the voice responded softly, almost tender. "That confusion is your rebirth. From now on, your truth will be hidden behind your silence. Your smile will be your weapon. Your calm will be your control." The mirror darkened completely, leaving only the echo of his own breathing. Then came the final whisper. "When they fear to offend you, they will begin to respect you. That is where your lesson truly begins." The candle died. The hall sank into absolute blackness. Somewhere deep within that darkness, a door opened, metal, heavy, waiting. And as the student stepped forward, the voice said, "Welcome to the second law, the currency of fear." The metal door closed behind him with a sound that echoed like judgment. The student's footsteps carried through a corridor of stone, each one slower than the last. The air was thick, damp, almost breathing. Somewhere deep within those walls, something pulsed, steady and patient, like a heart that belonged to the building itself. The voice followed him, no longer from the mirror but from everywhere. "Respect," it said, "is not given freely. It is purchased. And the only currency the world accepts is fear." The student hesitated. "Fear destroys," he whispered. "No," the voice replied. "Weakness destroys. Fear preserves. It builds order, hierarchy, control. Fear is the invisible law that keeps the strong revered and the kind forgotten." As he walked, torches lit one by one along the corridor, revealing portraits carved into the walls, faces of kings, generals, and tyrants. Their stone eyes glared down at him with silent contempt. None smiled. None ever had to. Machiavelli understood this. The voice continued. He wrote not of cruelty, but of consequence. To be feared is not to harm, it is to ensure harm is remembered. Fear is memory. The student stopped at the final portrait, a man with calm eyes and lips that curved slightly, either smile nor sneer. A crown rested upon his head, but it was tilted, almost mocking. Beneath the carving, etched into the stone, were the words, "Better feared than loved, if you cannot be both." He traced the words with his fingers. They felt ancient and heavy. "But what if fear turns them against me? Then you rule through their need to survive," said the voice. "Love invites betrayal. Fear demands obedience. It is not affection that protects the throne, it is consequence." The corridor opened into a wide chamber. At its center stood a single iron chair surrounded by circles of ash. The air shimmered faintly above it, as if heat rose from unseen fire. "Sit," commanded the voice. He obeyed. The iron was cold, unforgiving. Chains hung from the ceiling, rusted and unmoving. Somewhere far above, water dripped in rhythm, steady, endless. "Close your eyes," said the voice. "Now imagine every person who ever dismissed you, used you, pitied you. See them standing before you." The student saw them, faces from his past, blurred by time but clear in their disdain. They laughed. They turned away. "No," the voice whispered. "Remove the need to be liked. Strip it away, piece by piece, until all that remains is the hunger to command. Feel the space where fear should live." His chest tightened. The laughter stopped. One by one, the faces vanished, replaced by silence. Heavy, obedient silence. When he opened his eyes, the iron beneath him felt different, warm, almost alive. "What do you feel?" asked the voice. "Power," he said quietly. "But it feels lonely." The voice softened. "Respect always is. The throne stands alone for a reason." The torches dimmed again. The chamber began to fade, swallowed by darkness until only the echo of his breathing remained. "Remember this night," the voice whispered. "You have purchased the first coin of fear. Spend it wisely." The student stood, trembling but composed. And as he turned toward the shadowed exit, another whisper rose from the dark, gentler, almost human. "But beware, student. Fear demands loyalty, and betrayal is its interest." The student left the chamber of iron and ash with trembling hands. The whisper of the voice still clung to his thoughts like smoke. "Fear demands loyalty, and betrayal is its interest." The words echoed again and again, and with each repetition, they sounded less like a warning and more like a prophecy. The corridor ahead was dim, lined with old doors that seemed to breathe when he passed. Behind one of them, faint sobbing. Behind another, laughter. But the third door, half open, drew him in. Inside, the air was warm, heavy with the scent of candle wax and old parchment. A single parchment lay upon the table, pinned by a dagger through its center. Written upon it, in a trembling hand, "Trust is the most elegant form of suicide." The student froze. "What does this mean?" he asked softly. The voice answered from the shadows, its tone calm as ever. "It means betrayal is the language through which truth reveals itself. Every man speaks it eventually." He looked toward the corner where the voice seemed thickest. "I've been betrayed before," he whispered. "Then you were blessed," the voice replied. "Each betrayal is a translation, a reminder of where your illusion ended." The student's mind drifted to her, the woman with the soft eyes who once swore she'd never leave. He remembered her hand slipping from his as easily as breath leaves a dying man. The ache returned, sharp and clean. "She said she loved me?" "She did," said the voice. "But love and loyalty are not twins. Love seeks warmth. Loyalty seeks power. When fear whispers between them, love dies first." He closed his eyes. "So betrayal is necessary?" "Not necessary," corrected the voice. "Inevitable. Power attracts obedience, and obedience decays into envy. Betrayal is the tax every ruler must pay." The student stepped closer to the table, his fingers brushing the dagger's hilt. "And if I choose to betray first?" The voice seemed to smile. "Then you have learned the second rule of survival: control the knife before it finds your back." For a long moment he stared at the parchment. Then he pulled the dagger free. The wax dripped from the candles like melting time. The voice softened now, almost tender. "Be cautious, student. The moment you learn to betray, guilt will come for you. It always does. And guilt is harder to kill than love." The flame flickered. The parchment curled and blackened. He turned toward the darkness, the dagger still in hand, as a new corridor unfolded before him, narrow, suffocating, endless. And from somewhere ahead, a whisper called his name. The corridor tightened around him like a throat. Each step he took echoed longer than the one before, as if the stone itself was learning his rhythm. The dagger in his hand felt heavier now, not from metal, but from memory. Somewhere in the darkness, a sound began to rise. Faint at first, like distant applause. Then clearer, clapping, murmuring, whispering voices blending into something grotesque. He turned a corner and froze. An auditorium stretched before him, ancient, half-ruined yet alive. Rows of faceless figures sat in silence, their heads tilted toward a dimly lit stage. Upon the stage stood a single chair. And in that chair, bound by invisible ropes, was himself. The student's breath caught. The bound reflection looked exhausted, eyes hollow, mouth trembling. Above him hung a single light, white and merciless. The voice returned, but now it came from somewhere high above the theater. "Welcome," it said, "to the theater of guilt. Here you shall watch the play you wrote but refused to admit." The seated version of himself began to speak, his voice raw, broken. "I did everything they asked. I smiled. I obeyed. I gave them all I had. Why wasn't it enough?" The audience shifted, whispering. The student watched in silence, unable to move. The voice continued. "Guilt is not punishment, student. It is memory, replayed until it consumes. You carry it because you still crave their forgiveness." He tried to look away, but his reflection's eyes found him. "You betrayed her," it hissed. "You learned too well." The student's knees weakened. "No," he whispered. "She betrayed me first." The reflection laughed, a hollow, familiar sound. "So you returned the favor. Tell me, did it make you feel powerful, or empty?" The faceless crowd began to clap again, slow and rhythmic. Each sound felt like a heartbeat against his skull. "Make it stop!" the student shouted. The voice answered calmly. "It will stop when you stop asking to be forgiven. Guilt survives only where innocence still begs to live." The student gripped the dagger tighter. "Then what must I do?" "Kill the actor," the voice said. He looked at his reflection, trembling, pleading, bound. The guilt that had once been his shield now looked pathetic, desperate. Slowly, he walked toward the stage. Each step silenced part of the audience until only breathing remained. The reflection's voice cracked. "If you kill me, you kill what made you human." The student raised the dagger. "No," he said quietly. "I kill what made me weak." The blade plunged forward. The sound was not of flesh but of shattering glass. The reflection vanished in a burst of light. The audience dissolved into mist. The theater began to crumble into silence. For a long moment, he stood alone in the dark. Then the voice whispered gently, "You have silenced guilt, but something else now awakens in its place." He turned toward where the stage had been. From the dust, thin threads began to rise, threads of light, moving as if alive. They reached for him, wrapping softly around his wrist, pulling him toward another corridor, narrower, deeper. "Come," the voice said. "It is time you learned who truly pulls the strings." The air thickened again, heavy with unseen motion. And as the student stepped forward into the dim glow ahead, he realized he was no longer following the voice. It was following him. The corridor of light threads pulsed like veins beneath the skin of the world. Each step the student took pulled at them. They tightened, loosened, breathed. He no longer knew whether they guided him, or he guided them. "Every life," the voice murmured from the dark, "is a puppet show. The wise do not cut the strings, they learn to pull them." He stopped. "Whose strings are these?" "They are yours," the voice replied. "And theirs. The same threads that once bound your guilt now seek control. Every emotion you awaken, fear, love, loyalty, creates a line between you and another soul. The question is, who moves first?" The student looked at his hands. Thin filaments of silver light wrapped around his fingers, pulsing with faint warmth. When he flexed them, the air quivered. A distant echo responded, a gasp, a sob, someone unseen. "Are these people?" he whispered. "Yes," said the voice. "Those who still think of you, those who still speak your name in memory or anger. Their thoughts are the knots that keep you tethered. Pull one, and watch what happens." He hesitated, then tugged gently on a single strand. The corridor shifted, and before him appeared an image, his old mentor from the city, the man who had once called him friend, then turned away in jealousy. The mentor sat at a table, writing by candlelight. Suddenly, his hand trembled, the ink spilling across the page. He glanced around, uneasy, as though someone had brushed his neck. The student released the thread. The vision faded. "You feel it now," the voice said. "Influence is not spoken. It is felt. To rule hearts, you must learn to tighten the invisible." The student's breathing deepened. "This power, it terrifies me." "As it should," the voice answered. "Manipulation without fear is chaos. But control born of fear, that is order. The world is moved not by truth, but by the illusion of choice." The filaments hummed louder, weaving themselves into patterns across his arms and chest. Each pulse matched the rhythm of his heart. He could sense the thoughts of others, their doubts, their admiration, their hidden envy. For the first time, he didn't feel small. He raised his hand, fingers trembling with restrained command. The threads brightened, stretching far beyond sight. Somewhere, people stirred, friends, enemies, strangers, all touched by an unseen pressure. "Enough," the student whispered. "If I can pull them, someone can pull me. Who commands the one who commands?" Silence fell. Then the voice spoke with rare hesitation. "Every master serves something: fear, desire, memory. You will learn soon enough which hand moves yours." The words unsettled him. For the first time, he sensed that the voice, the teacher, was not entirely in control. A faint, feminine laugh echoed from ahead, soft, distant, impossibly familiar. The sound slipped through the corridor like perfume. "Who is that?" he asked. The voice grew faint. "A thread you should have cut." The light around him flickered crimson, threads snapping one by one. The air smelled of roses and ash. He walked toward the laughter, heart pounding. With each step, the corridor shifted into something warmer, more human, the scent of wine, the echo of a heartbeat, the ghost of a touch. The voice tried once more, desperate now. "Be careful, student. Power bends easily to desire. Love is the oldest string, and the hardest to sever." He didn't stop. The red light swelled, wrapping him in memory and scent. When he finally reached the door at the corridor's end, it was carved with a single symbol, a heart split by a crown. He reached for the handle. Behind him, the whisper sighed. The door opened to warmth, a deception of comfort. The scent of roses hung thick in the air, layered over the faint trace of smoke. A chamber stretched before him, lit by candlelight and memory. And at its center stood her. The woman turned slowly, her silhouette carved by the flame's trembling glow. Her eyes held the weight of recognition, but also something else, pity, perhaps, or warning. "So," she whispered, "he finally taught you how to pull the strings." The student froze. Her voice was exactly as he remembered, soft, melodic, edged with sadness. "You're real," he murmured. She smiled faintly. "Real enough to haunt you." He stepped closer. "Why are you here?" "Because you pulled me back," she said. "You couldn't let go of what you lost, so the thread led you to me." He searched her face for anger, for judgment, but found none. Only a calm acceptance that unnerved him more than hate. "You betrayed me," he said. "I followed fear," she replied. "The same fear he's teaching you to use." Her words cut through him. "You learned it before I did." "No," she said softly. "I suffered it before you did." For a moment, silence hung between them, thick and heavy. The candles flickered as if the air itself hesitated. The voice, the teacher, was silent now. The room belonged to them alone. She stepped closer until the scent of her hair brushed his skin. "Tell me," she whispered, "has power made you happier?" He didn't answer. She tilted her head, her eyes shining in the half-light. "Power is just another cage, my love. It makes you worship control because you're terrified of being powerless again." He wanted to deny it, but her words sank like hooks. The threads around his wrists trembled. "You speak as if you know," he said. Her gaze darkened. "I was his student before you." The world tilted. The candles leaned toward her shadow as if bowing. "He used me," she continued. taught me to manipulate, to bend hearts until they broke. And when I began to love him, he called it weakness." The student's voice cracked. "And now you serve him still?" She smiled, tragic and beautiful. "No. Now I serve the memory he left behind." Her hand brushed his cheek. The warmth felt almost human. "Be careful," she whispered. "The closer you get to power, the more you'll mistake it for love." Then she stepped back, fading into the candlelight like mist drawn into fire. The room fell silent again. Only the faint echo of her last words lingered. "The more you'll mistake it for love." The student turned toward the door at the end of the chamber. Beyond it waited nothing but darkness, and the faint hum of something collapsing inside him. He took a breath and stepped forward. And as the door closed behind him, the voice returned at last. "Now," it said coldly, "let's see what remains when everything else falls apart." The door closed behind him with a sigh, as though the room itself exhaled his past. The student stood in a corridor stripped of color, either dark nor light, either dream nor waking. It felt like the world between thoughts, where everything unfinished waits to die. The voice returned, quieter now, almost tender. "You've touched every shadow, fear, guilt, betrayal, love. And yet you still believe you can carry them without consequence." The student's steps echoed hollowly. "I didn't ask for any of this." "No one ever does," the voice murmured. "The collapse always begins as choice." The corridor trembled beneath his feet. Cracks spread along the walls, bleeding light like open wounds. The sound of whispering rose again, familiar voices from every lesson he'd learned, overlapping in chaos. Be feared. Control. Hide. Command. He pressed his hands against his ears. "Stop!" The whispers grew louder. Faces began to form in the fractured light, the teacher, the woman, his own reflection from the theater. They surrounded him, whispering truths twisted into accusations. "You betrayed to be free. You killed to forget. You learned to control because you feared being nothing." The student staggered backward. "You're not real." "But we are," said the reflection. "We are every version of you that you buried to become this." The floor shuddered violently. The corridor bent inward, folding like paper. The world was breaking, not because of outside force, but because of the weight of everything he had refused to feel. The voice sighed above the noise. "Power without empathy collapses from within. You have mastered fear, student, but not balance. You've silenced your guilt, yet it still beats beneath your ribs like a second heart." He fell to his knees, gasping. "Then what am I supposed to be?" The silence that followed was almost kind. Then came the answer, low, final. "What every ruler becomes, the ruin of his own creation." The light from the cracks grew blinding. The corridor split open, revealing a void beneath, endless, weightless, hungry. Everything he had learned echoed back at him, distorted: respect, control, power, love. And then, through the chaos, he saw something rise from the void, a silhouette, tall and still. The teacher. Only now, the teacher's face was his own. Realization struck like a blade. The voice had never come from someone else. It had always been him, the part that fed on pain, that shaped every mask, every manipulation, every choice. He whispered, trembling, "You were me all along." The teacher smiled. "And you were always willing to listen." The world convulsed. The two versions of him began to merge, flesh into shadow, thought into echo. The student screamed as every lesson, every whisper, every deceit fused into one overwhelming truth: power and self-destruction were the same act viewed from different angles. Then silence. When he opened his eyes, he was standing in a vast emptiness. No corridors, no mirrors, no voice. Only a single book lying open on the floor. Its pages were blank except for one line written in blood-red ink. "To rule others, you must first destroy yourself." He knelt beside it, tracing the words. The ink felt warm, alive. Somewhere in the distance, faintly, a new voice began to whisper. Softer. Feminine. Curious. A new student. He smiled faintly. "So the cycle begins again. And as the first echo of footsteps approached through the void, the voice of the old teacher, his voice, rose once more, calm and eternal. The voice echoed through the void like a breath caught between worlds. Welcome to the final lesson. The student, or whatever remained of him, stood in silence. The emptiness stretched infinitely in every direction, yet it felt intimate, almost personal. The book before him still bled faintly from its crimson script. The ink pulsed like a dying heart. He looked around. Where is this place? This, said the voice, now neither near nor far, is the chamber of endings. Every thought that survives collapse is written here. He gazed at the endless dark, where faint red lines traced symbols across the air, echoes of the threads he once pulled. And the book? The final truth, the voice whispered. The one even I was forbidden to speak aloud. He hesitated. I thought you were me. I am, the voice replied, calm as ash. But every mind contains two rulers, the one who commands, and the one who justifies. You've lived as both. But now you must choose which survives. The book's pages fluttered open as though stirred by invisible wind. On each page appeared fragments of his journey, fear, betrayal, guilt, love, all rewritten in his own handwriting. Each line seemed to ask the same question, was it worth it? He swallowed hard. If I destroyed everything to gain respect, then what's left to rule? Silence answered first. Then the voice said, almost kindly, yourself. That was always the empire. He knelt beside the book, feeling the strange warmth radiate through his hands. For the first time, the power didn't thrill him, it exhausted him. Every choice, every deception, every mask had led here, to solitude. So this is what respect costs, he murmured. Yes, said the voice. Respect is not love returned, it is fear remembered. It endures because it does not forgive. The emptiness around him began to ripple, shifting into faint images, faces of those he had controlled, hurt, or abandoned. None spoke. They only watched him, hollow-eyed, reverent, afraid. He tried to look away, but the voice stopped him. Do not turn from them. This is the price of power. Every pair of eyes that ever feared you becomes part of your crown. The faces dissolved into light. The book closed itself, sealing the final lesson within. He stood, the air vibrating softly with his heartbeat. What happens now? The voice hesitated before answering. Now you take my place. The realization cut deeper than any blade. There will always be another student. There must be, the voice said. Every age births a seeker who wishes to be loved but learns too late that fear lasts longer. The throne of respect is never empty, only inherited. The darkness began to fold inward, forming a new hall, a new mirror, a new candlelight waiting to flicker. He looked at his hands, still marked by the threads of light. And you? The voice softened into his breath. I am you. And soon you will be the whisper for another. A faint knock echoed somewhere distant, hesitant, curious. Another soul at the door. He smiled faintly, almost human again. Then let the lesson begin. The candle ignited. The mirror mended. The voice deepened into eternity. Stop being liked, start being respected. And as the hall filled once more with the whisper of a new beginning, the book closed on its final page.